And you're good.
That's why it's there. How's the camera? Is it getting everybody?
Yeah, hold on. I should flip back a little bit.
Yeah.
Is it getting everything? Is the camera getting everything?
Well, I show it up. I'm not going to specifically point out that particular area.
All right, you're set.
I might point out the pregnancy.
You have 2 viewers.
I have 2 viewers. Hi, guys. All right, so today we're doing Thourisaz. After doing my research, I decided that calling it thorn is kind of rude because that's what the Christians want. No, seriously. Some of the older rune poems have to do with some of the other ideas of Thourisaz, as in Thourisaz being the giants and Thor, and some of the other things we'll talk about later. But then in the Christianized rune poems, it turns it into a thorny bush. So instead of being the symbol of male virility and the chaotic forces of nature, it's
a shrubbery.
Yup, demasculating pagan ideas. No offense to the Christians. Their Jesus is chill too. And we'll talk about him later! So yeah, I always like to start off with showing everybody the visuals that I have for this particular rune. So we're going to start off with me showing off my fantastic collage.
Want me to be your Vanna White so you can point at it?
No.
Okay.
All of the things that you see here, we will be talking about later. Got all kinds of, we got Thor everywhere, we got Courage Wolf, for those of you in internet land. We got Sleep Thorns, we got Thorns. We got Runic Yoga up here, which I might have everybody do with me later. Runic Yoga. Trolls. Hey, Alfred, trolls.
Troll!
And I got some pregnancy down here with the trolls and some other things.
That would be a strange looking result from that pregnancy.
Well, yeah. I'm going to need that later. And then we also have our Christian rune cards. You can Vanna White this one for me because I can't get over there.
Is this the one?
That's the one. And
Come closer.
You need to get close.
Yeah, really, really close. Down a little bit. There you go.
You like the background music from...
Yeah, can sax.
Alright, you can stop now. But yeah, that's from our fantastic Book of the Rune cards, which I found out are very Catholic. No offense to Catholics, but I don't think that they researched this book too well. Because they think that Thourisaz is a gateway, which is very interesting. It actually comes into some of the other stuff, and I can see where they get that idea, with some of the various things that we talk about, but it's a little loopy, and actually has no context in the actual rune poems.
And it's definitely not a shrubbery.
It actually does have to do with shrubbery, but in more of a metaphorical sense.
Okay.
The shrubbery representing the phallus. So, like we said, the main aspects of this are the idea of the thorn, which has this idea of protection, which is another main point here. It's another main point.
Where are my bongos?
I don't know. Maybe hidden from you. Then we also have Thor, which also relates to the idea of the primal forces of nature. So you can actually see the word Thor in the name of the rune, Thourisaz. And Thourisaz actually is also the word for giants. So giants not only represents this idea of Thor, but also the idea of the giants, because the two of them actually fought against each other. The giants are the the creatures that came before the gods in runic and Norse mythology, and so they represent the primal forces of nature. As translations went along, that same word also meant trolls. Alfred?
Trolls.
I
love trolls.
You watched a movie about trolls.
Norwegians are funny.
Norwegians are funny. And actually, surprisingly enough, the Norwegian word for troll is Thors's, isn't it?
I thought troll was Norwegian in and of itself. Troll. Yes.
Such a great word.
Yeah.
Well,
Rune is how they pronounce it, though.
well, maybe it's the Norwegian word for giants. But anybody who speaks Norwegian, correct us. Let us know. What does Thurisaz translate as? So that's the idea of the primal forces of nature. And so these creatures represent just the chaotic forces of nature, and then you have the gods who come in and have more of that conscious mind, the idea of using nature for your own purposes. For example, Thor is the god of storms. And so instead of just the storms doing whatever the hell they want all willy-nilly, you have Thor, and he listens to everybody, and he's just like, well, these guys haven't gotten rain for a little while. Thunder and lightning, there you go! And so it's more thought out and planned. So this rune has a lot to do with not the unconscious mind, like we talked about with the previous two runes, Uruz and Fehu, which are totally unconscious runes. This one's the subconscious. It's just below the conscious surface. So it's that stuff it's that instinct, it's that gut reaction, but you know that you're doing it. So it has that primal forces and that idea of emotions, but it has harnessed them in order to go and do things. As I go all avatar here. And so Thor represents the idea of the primal force of lightning, that release of a build-up of power and weather and stuff like that. And then with that idea of the release of the build-up of power, you have the idea of the masculine form of potency. So it does have a lot of this masculine idea. And with that masculine idea also comes this idea that Thurisaz represents the menstrual cycle, childbirth, and various things like that. And that is seen most clearly in the rune poem, which I have here, that says, Thor's is the illness of women, and cliff dweller, and husband of a giantess. Thorn is sharp, of throbbing evil, for women to grasp, grim in the extreme, for one who likes to lie among them. Yeah. So that means you get a lot of babies.
And a lot of injury, apparently.
Well, I suppose if you're going to just hang out in a mead hall, then yeah, you probably get knocked around. Bruised bottom. So yeah. So we have that, and so with this idea of the Thor and the giant dynamic, you've got the giants who represent this primal force, and then Thor that represents the controlling of the primal force, because him and his hammer are the one thing that stands between humanity and the gods and the giants. So whenever the giants get uppity, Thor knocks him down a peg and kills just enough of them so that they stop being uppity. So, yeah. Doesn't obliterate them. Never gets rid of all of them. Just enough so that they don't get uppity. And then when they get uppity again, he says, don't make me come down there. Kills a few of them and then they go away and just keeps them under control. And so, in some of the before we have the warrior aspect of Thor, he was very much a farmer's god. Because he had this idea of taming the natural forces, which is something that farmers do. Instead of having that hunter-gatherer society, we have to go out and find all these plants, and you're just like, it's taking me days just to find 3 mushrooms. They grow it. And so that's taking a sort of control over nature, but still using nature's ways in order to get what you want. It's just, we know that wheat grows from this month to this month, but instead of going around and finding all of the wheat, we're going to have it grow all right here.
A whole bunch of it.
A whole bunch of it, right here. So we know where it is. We don't have to go find it. But we know how nature works with the wheat. Not only that, but because we know how it works now, we know what the wheat likes, we can give it more of that and make it bigger. So we use nature to our advantage. And so that's the idea of Thor, is using it to our advantage, but not taking advantage of it. Because if you put too much wheat in one field too long without kind of changing it out every once in a while,
you suck all the nitrogen.
You suck all the nitrogen from the soil, and it gets barren, which means no more babies. Or wheat. That's why you don't beat your wife.
Just enough to knock her down a couple times.
Exactly!
That's
10 minutes.
horrible.
Yeah,
just thinking of the giants.
Yeah, there you go.
Just enough.
Well, actually, if you see in most of the Norse mythology, all of the male gods marry giantess woman. So, yeah, there's a little bit of knocking around, but then again, they can take it.
Yeah. It's welcome.
Well, yeah. And then there's always, when we were talking about Urus, we were talking about one particular giantess who held over the power of greed. And she walked into the hall of the Aesir, and all the dudes fought over her and everything like that, and then they realized, oh crap, this is her fault. She's just too pretty and too awesome. So, because we're all fighting over her, we should just get rid of her. And the way to do that is to kill her and set her on fire. So they killed her and they set her on fire. She got better. And came back and they did the whole fighting thing again. Said, wait a minute, this is happening again. Killed her, set her on fire again. She came back again. They did this a couple of times. Until they realized this isn't working out. Maybe we should just tell her to get lost. And so they found out that telling her to get lost actually worked.
Oh.
So that's a notice to you fellas out there. Maybe instead of killing people and setting them on fire, maybe you should just ask them to leave. I'm being horrible. But anyways, so this is the just enough force to overcome the force that you're opposing, but not necessarily obliterate it. It's also the idea in the opposite extreme that if you're kind of like on the up and up, having a stroke of luck, and you're just kind of letting it carry you, and you're just like, oh, I'm good. I've been having a really great week. I'm just going to let this slide. This is a warning to not do that. Because you're going to get smacked down hard. So it's kind of a check-in to say, are you pushing your luck? Maybe you should pedal back a little bit and stop living in this extravagance, this beyond your means. Yes, you've been getting lucky lately, but that doesn't mean that you're going to continue to be lucky. And then with that comes the idea of assistance from a superior, from friends, various things like that. And that happens a lot with Thor, because he has a tendency to get in over his head, and, you know, you see the giants all moving on the thing, and they're just actually just kind of taking a walk, and he's just like, oh, I'm gonna go get him! Then he goes and does that, and he messes with the wrong group of giants, and they start fighting him, and then the rest of the Aesir need to say, oh, well, Thor's at it again! Gotta go fix it for him! He's always the one that charges in first, so it has that idea of the primal forces, emotions, intuition, getting there first, but it also has a tendency to get you in over your head. So that's why Thor-Thurisaz is one of the most dangerous runes.
I see.
Is because it's very easy to go to either one of these extremes.
Yeah.
And so you have to find that middle ground, but unfortunately that middle ground doesn't have any of the power in it. Because you're riding the middle ground. And so it's a very dangerous rune. You can get exactly what you want, just kinda, and just get a little bit of it, or you're going to end up on either side of this razor's edge and be in for a lot more than you wanted. Then with Thor, we also have this idea of his hammer that we talked about. And so it also has this idea of tools. Tools being used either for good or for bad. Just like we talked about with this razor effect with Thorn. So you have his hammer, which on one hand is what brings lightning, and that's considered fertility in Old Norse, because you see the lightning bolt striking the land. And so that's how they thought that fertility came into the land, that all the fields were able to rejuvenate themselves. And in a sense, if you want to take it as the great Sky Father and the Earth Mother, you see what's going on there.
Exactly.
You know what that is.
We're back to that release.
That release, exactly, because that's also what lightning is, and people could feel that. You can feel the charge of the air, and you can feel the build up, and then when the lightning strikes, you can feel that release of the tension. And so, there you go. Everyone knows what that is. So then you also have this idea of these tools being used to harm, because not only is this the tool that he uses to rejuvenate the land, but it's also the one that he uses to kill the giants. So if you're a giant, this is not good news for you. So you have this tool of either creation or destruction. And with that comes in the idea of the thorn bush, the idea of the thorn. And we have that as very much of a protective thing because this hammer is very protective. But it also has this idea of fertility, protecting the fertility. So if you see it in fairy tales, we see it in Sleeping Beauty.
Mm-hmm.
Her virginity is being protected by the thorns. Yeah. So you have that softness, that rose, being protected by the thorns around it. You even have that on your own body. You have your eyelashes, which are thorns, protecting the very soft part of your eye, very delicate piece of your eye. I have more of them in here that I have pictures of. Folds. Yeah, that's it. Then with Sleeping Beauty, which we just mentioned, we have that idea of the protective hedge, but we also have her pricking her finger on a spindle, which is also a thorn.
Yeah.
And that is called a sleep thorn, and that's actually a thing. Today, they are considered to be a bind rune, which looks like this. So, do you want to put the camera that nice and close up? Now, bind runes are combinations of runes that are used for a specific purpose. Sleep thorns are used to put somebody to sleep. They're very potent. You can bring it back in. Like, we're talking comatose. This is
out of it.
Yeah, you're done.
Yes.
And so that's one of those things that somebody puts the sleep thorn under your pillow, somebody else has to take it out.
Yeah.
Because you're not doing it. But conversely, it's one of those things that'll put you to sleep anywhere. And I mean anywhere. Like if you're having trouble sleeping on a train, you tell your buddy who's playing his Nintendo, I want to take a nap. I'm gonna slip a sleep thorn behind my head, take it out when we get to the station. You will be down to the count.
Yeah.
Hopefully you have a nice buddy who's not going to leave you on the train.
Hopefully you have a nice buddy who's not going to leave you on the train. But what the sleep thorn in Norse mythology was an actual physical thing. I'm not 100% sure on the plant. If anybody out there knows the plant that this is coming from, please let me know. My best guess is that it would have been from the rose bush, because there's actually a type of mold that is found on a rose bush called sleep apple. And it was a fungal growth on the stems of some wild roses, and it was used originally to help lull restless children to sleep. I don't know that you really want to put fungus in your child to make them sleep, but you know, folk medicine, it happens. And so I'm thinking that it was along the lines of that. So it was a rose thorn with that fungus in it, and they would put it in your ear. And so in the Brunhild version, the Norse mythology version of the Briar Rose story, which is slightly more dangerous, because it has the Norse involved. The more northern you get, the more dangerous it is. I mean, you got the Brothers Grimm who are in what is today Germany. And it was just, you know, she went to sleep for a while. She got a whole castle covered in thorns. They just killed everybody who came in that wasn't her true love. Whatever. For Brunhild, it was a ring of fire. So, get more north, gets more dangerous. Whatever. So yeah, and so in both of those in Brunhild's case, he put the sleep thorn in her ear. And when Siegfried came in, woke her up from it, he picked her up and the sleep thorn fell out. Which is very similar to the idea of Snow White, that when the prince came and kissed her, she coughed up the piece of the apple that was causing her to sleep. And so then you also have that sleep apple thing going on, which comes from the that old phrase of sleep apple. I don't know if it looked like an apple. I have no idea what the sleep apple thing is. Anybody who does know, please let us know. I couldn't find any information on the internet. And then also with thorn, we have this idea of healing elf shot. Because various plants have like arrowhead-shaped needles, like nettle and... Let me see what the healing elf shot was. Feverfew, red nettle, waybread, all of them have the spear-like leaves that look like little arrowheads. And so those would be considered curing elf shot. And what elf shot was believed to be is if you've ever like been walking and gotten one of those like little pains, just like out of nowhere,
Yep.
it was thought that that was the fault of elves who would shoot you with little elven arrows.
Oh.
And so, like, that was also believed to be the cause of arthritis.
Okay.
So it's like you were just, like, sitting there and, like, doing, like, sewing if you were a lady, and then, like, all of a sudden when your fingers started to hurt, it was thought that one of the elves shot you with this. And then what you would do is you would take the nettle and you would, like, the nettle or any of the curing elf shot, and you'd poke yourself with that and it would make it go away. And this, the idea of the elf shot was perpetuated by the idea that the Norse would find like old arrowheads, little ones, or like spear-shaped rocks while they're gardening, and they'd be just like, found one! I got you!
Validation for this.
Validation for this idea. And so that's the idea of the thorn, is a lot of small pointy things that are both, and see, it's also the pain of women, because you have them, arthritis comes from using your hands too much, and women are usually the ones that do all of the handy stuff.
Yeah.
No offense.
So
like
they go out and kill giants.
Yeah. Too busy killing giants to peel potatoes, I get it. And so then also when we get into the idea of the protection, we also get back to this idea of Thor being a protective figure. But he was protective in the idea that the best defense is a good offense, kind of a thing. And so he was a very active defense. He was always watching for things, and if he saw something, that he didn't think was right, he would just go in and get it. So it's more enthusiasm rather than fear of something. It's a reactive force. You fight fire with fire. Okay. So it's attacking something with the same. So it has, again, with also the idea of the elf shot, is in order to get rid of the elf shot, you need curing elf shot. So you're shooting yourself. You missed elf shot, didn't you?
I know I pressed a elf shot. I just wanted to move so I wasn't coughing too much on camera and get some water.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. All right.
Maybe I need some of that sapphire for the sore throat.
Yeah. And then we also have this idea that the relationship of the spirits to the object that protects against them. And you see that very clearly in the idea of the elf shot, because the elves shoot the tiny pointy things at you, and you need to use the tiny pointy things in order to get them out.
Yeah.
Makes
sense.
It's like the brownies in Willow. Didn't they have something that did that?
I've never seen one.
Oh. No werewolf good. Wow. Yeah. Classic.
Yeah. And so you can see that in a larger sense with the idea that Thor is very similar to the giants, and he's what the Aesir used to protect them from the giants.
From the giants.
So.
Back to the fighting fire with fire, yeah.
Yeah.
Makes
fire
sense.
with fire. The relationship with spirit, the spell that protects it.
Kind of like the idea of homeopathy. I was reading what was its original connotation. The idea was you took an herb that had heavy side effects when you took it too much of a dose, and used small amounts of it to treat an illness that had similar side effects.
That makes no sense.
I know, it doesn't. Basically, if you had, say you had something, if you took too many doses, it would cause liver failure. If you had liver failure, you gave somebody just a little bit of it, and it supposedly cured it. I don't think it was the brightest of ideas, but
I've read something
but
like
it's the
that
same
too.
principle.
It's really weird how they did that. Yeah.
I'm not really following that logic.
It was not good logic, but it's the same sort of principle as using the idea of sympathies.
Yes.
Using things that are similar.
Yeah. Right. So does anybody have any questions about anything that I just talked about? Or did I go too fast?
No, actually.
No?
It seems to make perfect sense.
Awesome. I like hearing that it makes perfect sense. Does anybody on the internet have any questions about anything that we just went over? No?
I do have a question. This is something that I'm very new to runes, as well as things like tarot. I mean, this one rune seems to have so many connotations.
Yeah.
When you're working with it and maybe doing a reading with it, say it comes up in a reading,
Mm-hmm.
how do you know which is which? I mean, is there a context thing of knowing some background about the reading and context of the other runes, or is it instinct?
It's a little bit of both.
Okay.
All that I've read and experienced with the runes is that all of these meanings have different contexts. Like, for example, if someone was asking you about how a situation with their boss is going to go down, you're not going to say, "You're going to have a baby!" Obviously, that's not what the rune means.
Yeah.
You're going to say, well, it looks like you're going to have a little bit of a power struggle with that, and that's probably going to have something to do with the fact that you're going to be taking over his job.
Mm-hmm.
Or he feels like you're learning.
Does it have to do with the other runes that are out at the table at the same time?
It could also have to do with that as well.
Kind of looking at it on the playing field here, what's going on.
Yeah.
If there's a lot of then maybe you're going to have a baby, and if there's not, then...
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously, like, if it was with Gifu, which is the gift rune, I would say baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's also Orkenaz, which is considered, which, if you take a look at it, you'll see why I think it's... Well, if you see, Thurisaz is this one right here, and Kenaz is this one right here.
Yes.
And if this one is this and this one is this,
Yeah, I could...
There's a penis and a vagina.
Yeah.
I was trying to say that's where
So-
it's
Well,
at.
they can't see, so...
Yes, I can't see.
I can't see. So can I see it now?
Oh, what are
It's
you looking at?
this one and
Gotta get
this.
closer.
This.
Gotta get closer.
All right, we're going
Right again.
Thurisaz and How do you pronounce that?
Kenaz.
It's right, that one there.
Probably.
And as you can see, there's sort of the triangles, which are, you know,
I'm trying to keep
the...
this PG-13, so you can see why that would be a baby.
Yes.
You can see why that would be a baby.
Sorry, I thought this is not the Joseph Campbell group.
Babies.
Thanks. And trolls.
Very much trolls.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so if you saw this with need, for example, which is now here, this one right here, that one is usually trolls, which basically means danger. It means that things have gotten out of control. You're letting your emotions get ahead of you. You're letting your subconscious take control of your conscious, and you're letting your primal instincts get the better of you.
Gotcha.
As opposed to if it was with Answer, for example, which is the one we're going to be doing next week. That would be more the idea of Thor, of the protection. That one. Yeah.
Kind of sort of saw that, yeah.
It looks like a bit of an F with diagonal lines.
So it has a lot to do with the runes that it's with, the question that's being asked, like what's going on in the reading. But these are just all of the meanings to it. And as you can see, all of these runes have lots of different meanings. And it also has to do with, like, if you're using it for magic, such as in bind runes or anything like that, I don't suggest it for one, and most people don't. For example, my newest book that I've been looking into, Freya Asman, with Northern Mysteries and Magic. It's all about feminism and runes. This one's especially dangerous for ladies. You can tell why. So yeah, dangerous. She cautions that this is one of the most dangerous runes because it's really hard to put intention into it and get out exactly what you want, because you have a tendency to get way more of what you're looking for than what you really want, and sometimes too much of a good thing is too much.
Like quince.
Like quince?
Quintuplets.
Yeah, way too much of a good thing. So yeah, you can get too much. And then, and I haven't. So do we? Are we good with that? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, because I haven't even gotten to the association yet. Things that Thurisaz is like. All right. So that's my explanation. All done and good. All right. So It's associations. It's associated with the god Thor, as we've talked about, and the Jontir, which is another word for giants, specifically the frost giants. Because as you can tell, Thor is a very fiery character, so fire and ice. Its number is 3, which is manifestation, the union of the divine plus the human. And so somewhere between, you've got the trolls, you've got Thor, and you've got man, and that's kind of the trinity right there. And so, because the trolls represent the Vanir, Thor represents the Aesir, and then there's man, which represents the third. Please don't get me going on the whole elves, dark elves, dwarves, and yes, they exist. But for the sake of this argument, we're just talking about those 3.
What is the Vanir?
The Vanir is the proto-gods, those who came before the gods, aka the giants.
Okay.
Equate to the Greek Titans?
That's what I was
Yes.
thinking when you mentioned them.
Yes. Pretty much the same thing as the Greek. It's really hard to compare the 2 pantheons because they're set up in such a different way. Odin's one of my favorite examples of this because he technically is most like Mercury, but Mercury is the messenger of the Greek pantheon, is kind of just a tiny dude with wings on his feet and just zips about, whereas Odin is the king of his pantheon, but they have much of the same properties to each other. So it's really weird comparing them.
Odin strikes me as a little bit more restrained than Zeus, a little bit more focused on
Zeus
wisdom
than
than
Zeus is a lot more.
the virility powers.
Yeah, Zeus is a lot more like Thor. But then again, Thor is an lecherous, crazy person.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is this also associated with like an astrological sign as well?
Yes. The astrological sign for this is most often considered to be Leo.
Okay.
But also Aries.
I was wondering that.
Yeah, also Aries and Virgo.
Okay.
Although, in my brain, Aries has a lot more to do with kind of like Fehu and Uruz.
I can, being an Aries, I can see the connection. It's the constant balance and getting
balance,
either not enough or more than you want.
Yeah.
You know, and
But that's also
trying to go back and forth.
that's the thing with Leo. Is Leo has a tendency to way
They're
go out there.
very overstep. Yeah. Aries are a little bit more restrained.
Yes.
And if they don't, they'll just jump into something else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Aries has got their things. They got their passion. They've got their I'm here. Deal with it.
Speak for yourself.
You have your I'm here. Deal with it. Don't even start. But Leos are more like I'm here to membership me. That's right. I am a Leo.
Which is
No,
why
that's
Aries
Leos out
and
there.
Leos do not get along.
Exactly.
But and then you also have the idea of Virgo, the Virgin. I guess.
Virgo transitioning from Virgo as she is deflowered.
I was gonna say, yeah.
I know. That was
Sounds
serious.
Yeah.
That's seriously. I mean,
Well,
not so much Virgo, the astrological. I don't know much about astrology. That's the thing.
yeah.
So-
I don't either. I'm mostly basing this off of my studies.
Anybody want to show up and teach an astrology study group?
Yeah, that'd be
I'd
fun.
be very happy if you did.
But actually, speaking of Virgo, I'd like to talk about our fun gateway idea.
Yes.
The idea of Thorn as a gateway. It has that idea, like Virgo transitioning. You have that woman on the cusp of womanhood. Because it has this idea of the childbirth. And there's kind of a before childbirth thing that you have to get over the whole virgin thing.
Yep.
So there's a place between virgin and childbirth that I'm not going to talk about that we so kindly got to talk about earlier.
Sorry.
And that's
Which
the
is
whole
the gateway.
which is the gateway.
Gotcha. That makes total sense now.
And there's lots of other gateways in our lives, adulthood. I think of Uruz as more of a gateway, but that's just me.
But those kind of sort of tie in the gateway and thorns, though.
Yes, the
In a
gateways
way.
of thorns. When we talk about the idea of it being the rose is usually a gateway plant into the plant kingdom. She's usually the one that initiates people. And so initiations is somewhere else.
In poetry, it's also very much a symbol of there's the white rose for the virgin
Yeah.
and the red rose for the more experienced woman.
Yeah, there you go. And so it's also this idea, it's also the gateway of the mind, because you have the two runes before it, which are the subconscious. Not the subconscious, the unconscious. And then after this one we get to the conscious. So this is the rune that's right before we get to the conscious, but not quite unconscious yet. So it's right in between it. So it is a gateway in that sense of the word. And then we also have its correspondence to healing, the heart. And the heart has multiple valves, which are all gateways, in a sense. There's that. I'm personally not too partial to the idea of thorn as a gateway, but there you have it. It's a thing that people like to talk about. Also, one of the plants that is the blackthorn, sorry. When it's hung over a doorway, it prevents evil from entering. And so there again, you have this idea of a doorway. It's also used for wishes. But so then again, you have that idea of a doorway.
Maybe,
as well.
maybe an idea of it as sort of a gateway guardian. Has it hanging over the doorway? Maybe.
Because we talked more about the gateway guardian last week.
Okay.
Yes.
Because it's not. It's more of an active defense, like we
Okay.
talked about with Thor.
Okay.
Again, this Thor thing has a tendency to come up with the gateway guardian.
And then with Urus, that was a bit more stoic, a bit more solid defense.
Yeah,
Yeah, unmoving.
yeah. It was more like, with Urus, it's a lot more, I've got a wall here and you're not pushing this wall back, whereas this one's more just like, there's a wall back there and I'm making sure you're not getting that wall!
The Black Knight from Monty Python sort of comes to mind. Which also goes with the idea of someone who throws himself into a situation that he can't handle.
That's
As
true,
well.
very much. Yeah. Then, some of the other ones we've got, some of the other associations we've got here is the polarity of male, if you couldn't tell.
Oh, fairness.
The color associated with it is bright red, which makes sense given that it has the heart and it's very virile. Its planetary association is Jupiter. I expand, I mature, I discover and understand. I develop the old into the new. It's very optimistic and has a tendency to be extravagant. So Jupiter has this tendency to go towards its extremes. Then you have its element being fire, which again speaks to the danger of thorn, because fire is easily the most dangerous of the elements, because it's very hard to let it get out of control. Yeah. Feel free to jump in and talk about any of this stuff. Then you've got the tree being the blackthorn, which we talked about hanging over the doorways, and making sure that evil doesn't come anywhere close. That's a masculine Mars fire plant. Its powers are exorcism and protection. It's the plant associated with Thurisaz is the house leek, which brings good luck and protects the house from lightning. Yeah, makes sense given that Thor is. Then you also have honesty, also known as the money plant. I grew up knowing it as the money plant. I've never heard of it as called honesty. But actually, if you carry it or scatter it, it scares away monsters.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
What does the money plant look like? 'Cause I feel like I might have seen one.
Yeah, it's got, when it grows, it has, it's this really gangly looking plant. And then it has these flowers, and after the flowers go away, it has these big pods that are big, flat, and green, and they turn brown, and you can rub them off. and underneath the brown pods are seeds. And between the two sides of it is this big round silver piece. They're actually very common here in New England.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. It was one of my favorite things growing up because I got to pick them and then, shuck all the stuff off of them. And then it was this big, shiny silver plant. And it's one of those things that after you shuck all the stuff off of it and, like, have it dried, they never go bad. So if you scatter that plant, the silvery bits around, it scares away monsters. Good to know. Wish I knew that when I was a kid. They're also, not surprisingly, used for money magic. Obviously being called the silver dollar. And that's actually the most feminine of the plants associated with Thurisaz. And then you also have the rose, which, as we've spoken of, has that stuff. The gems associated with Thurisaz are sapphire, which I honestly don't get. It will cure sore throat. It's called the Stone of Destiny. It contributes to mental clarity and perception and promote financial awareness.
Maybe then as sort of a counterbalance to the sort of overboard properties of the stone.
Yeah, I guess that sapphire kind of represents the middle of the road kind of situation with Thurisaz.
Yeah.
If you're walking that razor's edge that we were talking about, not going to either of the extremes, which is so easy to do. So, well, finally we have something that represents that. Then you have hematite. Hematite was originally known as bloodstone because it was used to staunch bleeding. So if you look at really old sources of literature on stones and you see bloodstone, don't start thinking about the green and red speckled one because they're talking about hematite. It can also be called, when you arrange it in the shape of a flower, it can also be called an iron rose. Native American folklore states that war paint made from hematite will make one invincible in battle. And in the 18th and 19th centuries, hematite was used during mourning. Hematite has been found on Mars. You can use it to improve relationships. It's good for increasing intuition. And it stimulates iron absorption in the small intestine.
Good to know.
Yeah. Well, which in turn improves oxygen supply to the body. So I'm starting to think that hematite is the best call for this, based on some of that. And then we also have actual bloodstone. And so, as Melissa so astutely pointed out when I was describing the story of bloodstone, is when Jesus was on the story behind bloodstone is believed to be that when Jesus was on the cross and then was pierced by the king's spear, or the crown of thorns, and spear is also a thorn in a way, because we talked about the elf shot. When he's pierced by that, his blood scatters on the green grass, and that became bloodstone. So there's Jesus. And so you have that idea of blood, the idea of the heart, as well as it's actually a very healing stone. It's good for circulation again with the heart. Symbol of justice, which is ironic. And increases the flow of energy. It gets rid of energy blocks really easily. And then it's also can be carnelian as well, but I don't really see that one. Yeah. And then, do we talk about the tarot?
We did not talk about
we didn't talk about the tarot. And then it's tarot associations are most often considered the emperor, because it brings stability, power, being in control of yourself and your situation, ambition, leadership, firmness of purpose, a dominant male person. And Thor is most definitely that. And then some people will consider it to be the chariot, which I see more as Uruz, as we've discussed before, but it still has that idea of the drive to it that is very much a part of Thurisaz. And then some people who see a lot of the darker sides of Thurisaz, which is very easy to see, think of it as the devil. The devil card. Temptation, obsession, sexual deviation, disturbed mental state, earthly passions turning you inside and out. So in reverse, it would be the wrong use of force, weakness, blindness. So this would be more, the devil card, I guess, would be Thurisaz reversed, if you really want to look at it that way. But, so yeah, you can see that some people see Thurisaz as being a very negative rune, which it's not. It's just a very powerful. Very powerful, difficult to control rune. It's really difficult to pin it down too, as you can see by all of the different things it means. And so you get a lot of non-pagans talking about it as either the demon rune or demon rune. Yeah. And I think that just about covers it. Any questions, comments, concerns, or other associations that I did not mention? Nothing? Nothing?
Nothing.
Nothing?
No.
Alright. Then I think we can call it good. So that means next week we will be talking about answer. It looks like Feihu, but upside down. So you know how Feihu's got the lines going up like that? Answer's got them going down like this. And we'll talk about why that is next week. So thank you guys for tuning in. Come on in next week. And as always, donations are appreciated. We do run this entire thing off of donations and donations alone. So thank you for your support and see you next week.